The carousel was the original amusement ride, with first concepts of the ride stretching back over 500 years ago. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, the amusement industry we know today began to form. This was led by developments with the carousel, with alternate versions of the ride type eventually becoming their own ride models that grace the fairgrounds and amusement parks of today. The concept of the carousel was novel. Bringing a safer version of horse riding or racing to riders of all ages had great appeal. But by the early 1900s, carousels were starting to become seen as more of children's-focused rides. This had led to several different fledgling ride manufacturers and showmen to pop up, creating their own version of the carousel, but with a racing element to increase the thrill. These concepts ranged from rides with electric motors that powered along a circular track, to simple roller coasters with carousel horses as the rider vehicles, now known as steeplechase rides. Two amusement ride inventors, known for their work on roller coasters, would come up with their own concept. In March 1913, Thomas Pryor and Fred Church would file a patent for a new type of carousel, the racing derby. This ride would feature a large platform with all mechanical elements of the ride hidden underneath rather than placed above riders. This platform could rotate like a carousel, but could do so at up to 25 miles per hour or 40 kilometers per hour. In addition, the horses on the ride could move back and forth to simulate a horse race. This was achieved by mounting a cable under the entire platform that attached to a large electric motor for main rotation. Each set of 4 horses ride on top of a rail much like that of a train located on the outside and on the inside of the platform. Each individual horse rides on a wheel that is guided along another rail that features hills and valleys, giving the horse its vertical motion. The ride's forwards and backwards motion is controlled by a cable that runs between sets of horses, allowing the ride to race. This feature of the ride is engaged separately, and the ride can be operated without it. The ride, in its original form, would bank off the success of horse racing and the subsequent gambling culture around it. The ride would be started when the ride operator fired a starting pistol. They would then make announcements when they started the racing action of the horses. Finally, a finishing gunshot would mark the end of the race. The operators would then go around the ride and place an American flag on the winning horse's ear and give each winning rider a free re-ride, as this was in the days where every park worked on a pay-per-ride model. This practice did start to fall under scrutiny from many localities due to it being a true game of chance and thus too similar to actual gambling. Accordingly, many rides operated without any prizes for winning for the majority of their operating lives. Rides were made in many different sizes, with between 40 and 60 horses, with the ride's diameter changing based on the number of these horses. The horses themselves came from many different manufacturers and were generally in the fairground style, but this could be varied from install to install. The first install of the ride would come in 1916 at Ocean Park in California. This ride would be used for many promotional and marketing materials produced by Pryor and Church. Accordingly, we know a lot about it. The ride itself would be short-lived, closing the following year in 1917 due to a dispute with the city. It remained standing but not operating until 1920 when it was destroyed in a fire. This first install featured only 40 single-seat horses, making it one of the smallest they ever produced. Still, it was the largest carousel in the world when it opened. Like all later models, it featured a large open area in the center where the center pole would be on a traditional carousel. On this ride, they used the space for a traditional carousel, placing a Loof model carousel in the area. The idea was that parents could have their children ride the much tamer Loof ride while they rode on the racing derby. The ride was designed as a self-contained amusement park of its own, with space around the ride for shops and restrooms around and inside of the ride building. Interestingly, Pryor and Church actually marketed this ride to the US military as a tool for training men to ride cavalry horses. That resulted in these promotional photos from the World War I era taken on the Ocean Park ride. The ride never caught on for this purpose though. Regardless, this installation was incredibly popular, with it getting over 200,000 riders between May and September of 1916. The ride model would continue to be produced, with about 18 being built between 1916 and 1927. The ride model was known for its profitability, in part due to its very, very high capacity, as the ride could be ordered with up to 64 double-seated horses, making for an enormous maximum capacity of up to 128 riders per cycle. The ride would be a smash hit in these early years. It can be thought of almost like the record-breaking roller coasters of today, but more for its time. This ride would be hugely profitable for its owners in those early years as well, but the ride's complexity and scale made it challenging to maintain, and as amusement parks fell out of favor in the late 20s and 30s, these rides were some of the first to be cut. Many rides also succumbed to fire at their respective parks, as amusement parks at the time were notoriously flammable. By 1927, the model was discontinued. We'll now move on to cover a few notable installations of the ride. Several examples of the ride were installed at parks in California in the late 1910s. This was near the headquarters of Pryor & Church, and they did form good relationships with many parks in the area. Their second install would go to a park in Venice, California. This would be a 48 single-seat version with the middle of the ride filled with counter-rotating hurdles that increase the sense of speed felt by riders. This ride was destroyed by a fire in 1920. It was replaced by a less extravagant but higher capacity version with 56 double seats in 1921. The ride would operate until 1946 when the park was closed due to political pressure and declining surroundings. In 1921, a large 64-horse version with double seats was installed at Euclid Beach Park in Cleveland, Ohio. This ride became an immediate hit due in part to its incredible capacity. The ride would remain at Euclid Beach up until 1965 when the park itself started to decline. It was at this time that a growing beach resort about an hour west of Euclid Beach, named Cedar Point, purchased the ride and relocated it to their park. Opening in 1966, Cedar Downs Racing Derby is now the only large-scale version of the ride still in operation. It has been a feature of Cedar Point's main midway for over half a century, and the ride itself is nearly 110 years old. This example of the ride is also the only remaining one that still operates with its racing function intact. Still today, races are held at the park daily, and the ride remains a true gem of the Cedar Point attraction lineup. You may even hear a familiar recorded voice announcing the start and end of each race. The ride today still retains its wooden horses and operates at full capacity, but it has had its speed reduced over the years, today operating at a max of about 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. This is still faster than any regular carousel. Reportedly, back in the 1920s or 30s, several riders were injured on other installations due to falling off the horses at their old top speeds. When at full speed on the old versions, riders would be subjected to high amounts of centrifugal force. This has caused them to be slowed down over the years. It's not known if Cedar Downs always ran at this lower speed, or if not, when this lower speed was implemented. The only other Pryor & Church Racing Derby that still exists is located at Rye Playland in New York. This is also the only model still in operation at its original location. This ride opened as the last known installation of the model in 1927. It features 56 horses, also with double seats, though today only one seat is allowed to be used at a time. The ride is slightly smaller than Cedar Downs, however, it does still operate near its original top speed of 25 miles per hour. Unfortunately, the forwards and backwards racing element of the ride is no longer functional. This means that the original version of the ride experience is essentially defunct, as none still race at the original speed. However, both remaining examples of the ride do a great job preserving the history and experience of a ride that was the cutting edge of the amusement park experience 120 years ago. One more similar ride to a Pryor & Church Racing Derby does exist. In 1959, Blackpool Pleasure Beach in the UK worked with independent ride designers to create their own derby racer. Their version features 56 horses that can each seat 2 riders. This version is far newer than the Pryor & Church models, but it still provides a similar experience. It was originally designed to have all of the same features as the Prior and Church model, but today it does not operate with the racing feature enabled, leaving Cedar Downs as the only ride to operate with this feature in the world. Regardless, the Blackpool ride does run at high speed and gives a sense of what this classic ride experience was like 100 years ago. There is more of this story to tell, but the details of other installs are less well known. If you found this video interesting, then I encourage you to go out and read through the sources. These rides have a lot of lost history, and the more eyes on them, the better chances we have of discovering more. Additionally, if you can, go out and ride one of the remaining examples. We need to show these parks that these rides matter and that we care about their future. With any luck, these remaining 3 examples will be in operation for generations to come. As always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe so YouTube continues to push videos like this to others. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next week.